Welcome to the Pub Sports Radio Ian Cameron Sports Report for Monday, November 30th, a brand new week. We're going to recap the NFL and college football weekend as we always do on Monday to begin the show. We'll talk about the two games taking place, the not so Maui Invitational this year, the Mauiville Invitational, if you will, because it's in Asheville, North Carolina this year. The Maui Invitational obviously moved due to travel restrictions caused by the pandemic. So the Maui Invitational in college basketball this year is taking place in Asheville. I will preview the two games from that tournament tonight, North Carolina, UNLV, and then a really good one after that, Stanford and Alabama. I'll preview both of those games in college basketball. And we'll also look, of course, at the Monday nighter, the Seattle Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles, as the Eagles look to snap out of their doldrums with a home win they desperately need tonight, although not going to be easy trying to get it against Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. College football over the weekend, let's look back on it. Alabama, too much for Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Auburn was banged up along the offensive line. They couldn't really get anything going in terms of consistent offense or a consistent ability to move the football against Alabama, and Mac Jones and the Crimson Tide offense once again looks spectacular in the victory over Auburn. They get the win, they get the cover, and because of Auburn's offensive struggles, that game ends up staying under the total on Saturday in the Iron Bowl. Northwestern, how about them losing outright as nearly 2 touchdown favorites against Michigan State? One of those games where just nothing was really working for Northwestern. They were sluggish, sloppy from the beginning, and just didn't play well. And on offense, that was probably the worst game they've played, and the worst game Peyton Ramsey, the quarterback, who transferred to the program from Indiana. Safe to say that was the worst game he's played all year as well. A really dismal loss for Northwestern, ending their undefeated bid as they lose to Michigan State. As far as Notre Dame goes, North Carolina, they played on Friday, on Black Friday, and Notre Dame end up getting the win in that game as well as the point spread cover. About as good a defensive performance as you could ask for from Notre Dame against a really explosive, potent North Carolina offense. An outstanding performance on that side of the ball by Notre Dame, especially, they got caught off guard. They hadn't played in a while, and Brian Kelly said something along those lines after the victory on Friday that, we just weren't really into the game early. We weren't up to game speed early. Oh, they got up to game speed on that defensive side of the football pretty quickly, because after 2 touchdown drives early in the game, North Carolina's offense was shut down from that point on. Notre Dame with a very big win for them. Texas A&M keeps their college football playoff hopes alive. A very methodical, workmanlike, business-like win against LSU. It wasn't flashy, although it was disappointing if you laid the points with A&M, because an LSU backdoor touchdown in the final minute cost you the cover in that game if you laid the points with A&M. But nevertheless, it was a good, solid result, a win. They don't suffer the loss, and they at least keep their playoff hopes alive. They're on just barely on the outside looking in right now in terms of the college football playoff, sitting in that number 5 spot right now, just behind the top 4 teams in that college football playoff ranking. What other big results did we see in college football over the weekend? We saw Iowa pull off a rivalry win against Nebraska, 26-20. Iowa State spoiling the party of Sam Ehlinger's last ever home game in Austin, Texas. A potential game tying field goal goes wide, and Iowa State gets the win over Texas, 23-20 in that game. As far as what else we had on Saturday, how about Oregon State coming back from a double-digit deficit, just a horrendous collapse in the fourth quarter by the Oregon Ducks, and the Oregon State Beavers steal the victory in the Civil War over Oregon, 41-38, despite the fact their quarterback, Tristan Gebbia, got injured in that game. The battle of 2 struggling teams. Someone had to win it. It was Penn State defeating Michigan 27-17. First win, first point spread cover of the year as well for the Nittany Lions in that game. Oklahoma State outlasts Texas Tech 50-44 in a wild high-scoring affair against the Red Raiders. Indiana wins the game, but Good news, bad news. The bad news being Michael Penix Jr., torn ACL injury suffered in the victory over Maryland, and he is now out for the season. So some unfortunate news for them. Coastal Carolina, what else is new? They win again. They cover again. It's been the story of their season. 49-14 romp over Texas State. Kansas still sucks. Newsflash, breaking news, which we all knew already. TCU with the 59-23 win. A disappointing loss for Nevada. Their first loss of the season at Hawaii, 24-21. Just a really malaise type of effort from Nevada. They weren't really sharp from the beginning. Bad penalties, undisciplined play, and it ends up costing them in the loss to Hawaii, 24-21. So those are some of the main college football results from Saturday. We turn to NFL from Sunday. We start with obviously the big game of the Sunday slate, Kansas City, Tampa Bay. Tom Brady and the Bucs falling behind, made a valiant effort to try to come back and win. But really, again, the Tampa Bay defense, we talk about, yeah, they're improved, but you match them up against a quality offense, and there's still some holes in that Bucs defense when they step up in class and they face a good offense and a good quarterback. We saw that again in the loss, 27-24 to Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs yesterday. I talked about how it was a dubious spot for the Rams against the Niners. The Niners were fresh and rested off a bye week. The 49ers were as healthy as they've been in weeks, and they get the win 23-20 outright as underdogs in that game. New Orleans just totally dominant over Denver. Denver in a hopeless position, losing all of their quarterbacks, having to start a wide receiver, Kendall Hinton, who hadn't played quarterback since his college days at Wake Forest. And it was just a tall order against an elite Saints defense. Saints, doesn't matter what number you laid with the Saints, you got the money comfortably. 31-3, 28-point win for the New Orleans Saints. A bad loss for Arizona, and that's 2 losses in a row. And now 6-5, they're in a precarious spot right now. They need to get it turned around in a hurry because the wild card is not a sure thing for the Arizona Cardinals by any stretch. They lose 20-17 to the New England Patriots. Not pretty for the Cleveland Browns, but effective. They beat Jacksonville 27-25 and improved to 8-3. A Las Vegas Raiders, shame on me for thinking things may be a little different with this team. I thought they had the maturity, the poise, the ability to be able to go on the road, take care of a somewhat, suspect Atlanta Falcons team. And they just played a pathetic football game. Both sides of the ball, offense, defense, coaching was bad. It was everything for Las Vegas. 43-6, they get destroyed by Atlanta. A really hideous result from the Raiders. Minnesota hanging on for a 28-27 win, or coming back to beat Carolina 28-27 in that one. The Buffalo Bills. Anthony Lynn, by the way, I got to vent about this. That might have been one of the most inept coaching and in-game management displays that I've ever seen from a football head coach in the NFL, from Anthony Lynn. What is the man doing? Like, seriously, the play calls are inane. Let's do an option pitch on 3rd and inches. And then he'll get stopped 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. That's a smart play call, man. You know what you're doing. You got your head on straight. You're screwing in with something like that, clearly. Oh, and if you thought that wasn't a great illustration of the great coaching of Anthony Lynn, how about we're down 2 scores, 30 seconds to go. We barely have time to get a score, have enough time to kick the onside kick and get it back again to try to score again. But no, inside 30 seconds to go. We need 2 scores. We're inside the 10-yard line. We have no timeout, so we can't stop the clock. We're going to run the football. I mean, you got to be kidding me. You must be shitting me that I actually saw that with my own 2 eyes yesterday. You couldn't believe it. You couldn't believe a 3rd grader can figure out what you don't run the football there. A little 8-year-old kid who's watched football for a month can probably say, you know what? I can't run the football with 30 seconds left and no timeouts, down 2 scores in the game. But Anthony Lynn can't figure that out. I couldn't believe, I really on it. Sometimes there are things that I've seen a million times and they don't shock me. This legitimately, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the ineptitude. I couldn't believe the stupidity. I really couldn't. It was flabbergasted at it. I couldn't believe it. You could be that much of a moron. You could be totally that stupid to run the football. Think about it. You're down 2 scores inside the 10-yard line, 30 seconds on the clock. You have no timeouts, and you actually run the football. A functioning human brain made that decision. Or so we thought it was a functioning human brain. Clearly it was not. Anthony Lynn's got to go. This is enough. This is ridiculous. Rich Gannon was chewing this guy's ass out on the CBS broadcast of that game throughout the game for what he was doing, and deservedly so. I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. This man's got a football mind, making ridiculous calls like that, ridiculous decisions, what he did throughout the game. Calling a timeout in the third quarter as well on 4th and 1 because he wasn't sure if he wanted to go for it or if he wanted to kick the field goal. So you're down in the game. You need these timeouts. They're like oxygen in football, fourth quarter, having your timeouts, especially when you're trailing. And this guy burns a timeout on 4th and inches to decide what he's going to do. And he ends up kicking a field goal at the end of the day. You can't explain it. You can't explain how this man got the job. Seriously, when you see this shit. Like, really? I couldn't believe it. And I've seen a lot. I've been through a lot. Watching sports, betting sports. It takes a lot for me to say, you know what? I can't believe something just happened. I couldn't believe what I saw out of Anthony Lynn and that whole coaching staff. It's the whole coaching staff. Everybody needs to shoulder the blame, but he's the head man. He's the head man. He makes the final decisions. It falls on his shoulders at the end of the day. And his team, again, suffering a game where, again, they're competitive. They're in the game. They're battling. They're trying, but they lose. And bad coaching has had a lot to do with these losses this year for the LA Chargers. Giants, 19-17 win against the Bengals. Dolphins beat the Jets 20-3. Another sad sack, hapless performance. You know what? Someone on Twitter told me yesterday that they thought Sam Darnold might actually be a downgrade from Joe Flacco. I'm starting to think he's right after what I saw yesterday. Sam Darnold was pathetic against the Dolphins yesterday. It was absolutely terrible in the game. I can't say I'm all that shocked by it, but you're right. Joe Flacco looked better the last couple of games than Darnold did yesterday in that game. So that's your NFL look from yesterday. Another wild Sunday overall. Oh, yes, and Sunday Night Football, Green Bay. Chicago's offense still broken. Mitch Trubisky, not the answer. Still making bad decisions, bad interceptions, offensive line problems galore. And what about the defense? The defense finally last night said, you know what? The only reason we've even won 5 games this year is because of us. And you turkeys on the other side of the football on offense can't do a damn thing right. Screw you. Peace out. And I think there was a little mail it in from the defense because they're sick and tired of carrying the offense week in and week out for this Bears team, and they get absolutely bombed by Green Bay, 41-25. Green Bay let their foot off the gas in the fourth, making that final score closer than it really was. But there's your NFL look back on Week 12 recap of the weekend's action. Let's move forward now to tonight, college basketball, Maui Invitational, which should be called the Asheville Invitational because that's where this is being played now. We've got North Carolina taking on UNLV. North Carolina 13-point road favorite or 13-point neutral court favorites here. Total 153 in this game. Look, UNLV, I was thinking this team was going to be upper echelon in the Mountain West, and I still think that. However, you lose to Montana State like they did in their first game. Obviously not good. But I do like the looks of UNLV coming into the season. They've got some size. They've got some defensive ability that I think is going to be pretty solid for them. They've got inside-outside balance. I think they're extremely well coached with TJ Otzelberger. Not a good first game for UNLV, no doubt. You can't sugarcoat it. It wasn't good. But I'm going to hope this team's a lot better than what I saw. And I think with a good coach, and I still think this is a good coach, Otzelberger. In past years with Dave Rice and Marvin Menzies and some of the just awful head coaches they've had, maybe when the UNLV team starts to suck and lose, the coach is just not good enough to get the train back on the tracks. I think Otzelberger can do that after the first game against Montana State. And I'm not really ready to lay these 13 points with North Carolina. They're definitely a team that had the bottom fall out last year. 19 losses for Roy Williams' team. They bring back Garrison Brooks, Bacot in the front court as well. There's definitely some experience. The key offensive players back for them this year. All the growing pains and the injuries they suffered last year should probably make them better. I thought they had a nice, solid first game against Charleston. Not pretty, but they got the win against Charleston in their first game. But I'm not ready to lay 13 with them here on a neutral court. And if you look at, say, the Texas Davidson game to start off this Asheville Invitational. Laying points on a neutral court's difficult, and I think UNLV is still better than they showed in their first game. So I'm leaning to the dog here, UNLV plus the points. I wouldn't talk you out of the over as well. You're going to get pace on both sides. North Carolina's trying to play back to that Roy Williams speeded up pace they've played like in the past. You're going to get that kind of tempo as well from UNLV under Otzelberger. So I think we could see some points. Should be a fun game there with North Carolina, UNLV. Here's a really good one. Stanford and Alabama, the second of the night doubleheader here in this Asheville Invitational. We've got Alabama slight favorites here, 2-point favorites, 151 the total in this game. I'm an Alabama believer. I like this team a lot. I liked them a lot last year. They cashed a bunch of tickets for me. I liked them over the total last year in a bunch of their games. Those cashed for me quite a bit as well. And that's exactly the same approach I'm going with Alabama this year. I think they're really good. Petty's absolutely outstanding. I know they lose Kyra Lewis from last year's team, but they've got Petty back. They've got Herb Jones, absolutely outstanding player at both ends of the floor. Well coached under Nate Oates. All he's done is win everywhere he's been at Buffalo and now here at Alabama. He's already got this program pointed upward in the right direction. I like Alabama a lot, and I like Stanford. I think Stanford's going to be a good team, but Jared Haas hasn't impressed me. They've kind of underachieved at times. I think Stanford's we're building toward being possibly a very good team. I think Alabama's already a very good team. I like them to win this game tonight, Alabama, just to win the game on the money line. I would take the money line. If you want to lay the 1.5, 2, go for it. But I just like them on the money line tonight and also over the total here. They are going to be challenged at the defensive end, Alabama tonight. Like offensively, I don't see Stanford's a good defensive team, could be a top 10 or 15 team in terms of defense this year in the country. So this is, but Alabama offensively, I think they're one of those teams. They can have success against any team with their pace, with their style. I think it's difficult for any team, regardless of how good you are at the defensive end of the court, to slow them down. I think they're going to have that success offensively tonight, but they're going to be challenged by defensively. They recruited well, Stanford, with some good players coming in to give them scoring punch. Oscar da Silva in the low post is going to be a handful for Alabama to deal with. Alabama doesn't have a great amount of depth in the front court this year, so that could be a offensive edge for him in this game. So I see points being scored. I like it over the total, and but I do like Alabama to win this game here. Stanford, these are two good teams. I think it'll be close, but I think Alabama's closer to that being a great team status at this stage of their development than Stanford is right now. And I think it might show here tonight in this game. All right, Monday Night Football, Seattle Seahawks, Philadelphia Eagles. Does anybody want to bat the Philadelphia Eagles in this game? Because it's been a one-way type of betting action in this game, all the way from Seattle opened a 3-point road favorite. They're 6.5 now across the board. The totals come down from 53 to 48.5. I agree with the move to Seattle, although I'm a little bit leery about laying, 6.5 now, almost a full touchdown. But to me, the Eagles offense, until I see something change, it looks broken. It looks broken. And it's not just Carson. Carson Wentz hasn't played well, has to make better decisions, has to be more accurate with the football. Nobody's going to argue that. But what I'm going to say about Carson Wentz is I don't know if this is solely a quarterback issue with the offense. I think this is an offensive line that is in tatters. It's been in shambles all season. Lane Johnson's out for the year now. Jason Peters is playing with a dislocated toe tonight. I give him all the credit in the world. He's tougher than a $2 steak, and I give him credit for still playing through it. But that can't be good for the offensive line. And Carson Wentz, I think his struggles are not just he hasn't forgotten how to play or he all of a sudden just lost all his skills. He is fearful of getting smacked upside the head every time he drops back to throw the football, because that's exactly what's happened to him this season. And when you get the heebie-jeebies in your stomach and you feel, whoa, I have no time to throw the football, you're going to rush everything. Your timing's going to be off. You're going to be inaccurate. You're not going to give your receivers enough time to throw the ball, get open, and throw the football and hit them in stride. And as a result, you're going to be off with your passes because you're throwing it a second too soon because you're worried you're going to get clobbered like you have all season. So he needs to be better. He needs to hang in the pocket a little bit better than he has. But I think it's not just, he can't throw the football accurately anymore. He's scared to wait in the pocket to throw because he knows the offensive line's been giving up pressures, hits, and sacks on this poor guy all season long. And now Doug Peterson sort of going with that narrative that this is all on the quarterback because Jalen Hurts is taking first-team practice reps with the offense this week. So it's a really, really sordid affair. I mean, can you guarantee that Jalen Hurts, just if they go to him and he gets some snaps tonight, it's all of a sudden going to lead to the Eagles' offense working? I'm not so sure because I think it's more than just the quarterback or quarterbacks in this case. I think it's a product of an offensive line that just hasn't been very good, throughout the course of the season and doesn't seem to be getting any better. The skill position talent's been banged up. Where the hell's Alshon Jeffrey been? He's finally been healthy again the last few weeks, and he's been you can't notice him. You can't find him with a telescope on the football field. It's just a whole bunch of issues. Seattle a few weeks ago and a month ago, you would think Philadelphia facing the Seattle team. Well, guess what? Seattle can't get a pass rush. This could be the game where Wentz and the offense get it going, and even the offensive line of the Eagles can maybe hold up in pass protection better. But now the Seattle Seahawks have Carlos Dunlap, who they got a few weeks ago, who's been a monster and has given them their first semblance of a pass rush on defense all season long. So all of a sudden now this matchup's not quite as good for Philadelphia as you once thought it would be. Dunlap has been a difference maker for Seattle. So, and Seattle to me is just still the better of these two teams. They have the extra prep time as well because they played last Thursday night at home against Arizona. So they have 10 days to get ready. They could have both running backs in their backfield tonight, Carlos Hyde and Chris Carson. And Pete Carroll wants to run the football a lot more. He said it all week long. He wants more balance in the offense. And I think and obviously if you're going to run the football more, it's going to take more time off the clock. I think that's what people are seeing as well, betting this game under. So for me, I can't back Philadelphia. Even with all these points, I can't back Philadelphia. I just don't know if it's the best value to jump in on Seattle now when you could add 3.5 early in the week, last week. Now it's 6.5 with them here. It's just not, the value to me is gone, but I agree with the Seattle move, and I do agree with the under here in this game with the Seahawks and the Eagles on Monday Night Football. Couple props I'm still looking over, potentially betting here. If I have any prop bets, player props for the game, I will post them on Twitter. We did have a couple. I'm probably going to stick to maybe touchdown scorer props tonight. Could be a little dicey with what to expect game plan wise from both teams, but maybe just stick to a couple touchdown scorer props that might have some value. If I have any props for this game, I will post them right before kickoff on Twitter at Bobano. All right, that'll wrap up this edition of the Pub Sports Radio Ian Cameron Sports Report for Monday, November 30th. I'll be back with you tomorrow on Tuesday. We'll break down some more college basketball, and we'll start to get you ready as well for more NFL and college football this weekend. And also we'll preview the Ravens-Steelers tomorrow on the show. We think the game is going to happen. Apparently, according to Adam Schefter, the Ravens are talking to the league about maybe that threatening not to play the game because of the COVID-19 issues they've had. So who knows if that game's going to be played right now. But as of right now, it's still scheduled to go on, the Ravens and Steelers. So if that game is still going to be played as scheduled, when I record this show tomorrow, we will be previewing that game as well tomorrow on the Tuesday edition of the Ian Cameron Sports Report. Make sure you're checking out Pub Sports Radio, the YouTube channel every day. Great content here. And make sure you support the channel because without Pub Sports Radio, we can't bring you this great content on a daily basis. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Enjoy the games and good luck tonight. Have a great Monday night, and I will be back with you tomorrow on Tuesday for another edition of the Pub Sports Radio Ian Cameron Sports Report.